Hello and welcome to the Truvisionaries 2026. Today I'm joined by one of our nominees, Ben Painter. Ben, how are you, my friend?
I'm so good. How are you, Leo?
Yeah, lovely to see you, as always. Look, we've got 3 rapid-fire questions for you that our audience
Brilliant.
are dying to know the answer to. So tell us, Ben, how did you get started and why did you get started in the short-term rental industry?
I guess it is a very much a classic answer, but I kind of fell into it. So I worked in a more traditional property field. I hate to say it, it was a state agency. I hated the industry. Like, I really loved property, but I hated the industry. I found it incredibly old-fashioned and very stuffy, and it just wasn't for me at all. So I was just kind of having a look about other options were out there. And this was right at the time. This would have been about 2016, 2017, around then. So this was right at the time as our industry was kind of getting started. And I was just pinging off in the inquiries pages. I met this guy who had a company called Dromal. And we were sat in a Pret in Elephant and Castle, and he was like, look, I started this company, we've got about 7 properties, I don't really have time to run it, so I was going to close it, unless you want to take it over, and I'll give you half the company if you run it. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. That's how Dromal was born. And then I took it from there with absolutely no experience in the industry prior or anything, didn't know anything about cleaning or processes or operations. I was literally a business development person before that, so I knew how to do a sell. And I took it from 7 properties to 1,500 during that journey. But a lot of mistakes along the way, a lot of learnings, but like that's how I ended up in the industry. So a complete fluke. Really.
Wow.
So
what an amazing encounter. What an amazing encounter that led you to grow from 7 to 1,500. Incredible. And tell us, during that time, a lot, as you said, a lot of failings, a lot of learnings, a lot of successes, I'm sure. You'll be able to answer this question really, really well, I'm sure. What's one thing most hosts aren't doing that they should start doing today?
I think for me, and this is something that I learn with Dromal, and it's something that I take into everything that I do, and I'm actually going to use a phrase that you told me about, is look what everybody else is doing and try and do something different. Similar path. You said this phrase to me, correct me if I get it wrong, when others think, you zag.
Right.
Which I love. I love that phrase so much. But, like when, for example, in the very, very early days of Dromal, it used to go to these like STR meetups and everybody would be like, oh, how are you doing Google ad spend? How much spending? What kind of results are you getting? And there was a sort of it amongst the smaller operators, very much a kind of vibe of what percentage of revenue is spending on Google Ads, and there was kind of a ceiling for that. And I was like, well, this seems kind of mad. So I used to go on Gumtree and Spare Room and just spend my entire day calling people, trying to convince them to short-term rent, which at the time I think a few of us were doing, but not a lot. And I was doing that for 80% of my time, and that's how I got out of that bracket. But that was an unusual thing to do at the time, and it got me out of that position. So I think there's no direct answer. There's no like magic, you should do this. But what I would say is, like, if you're doing the same thing as everybody else, you're going to get the same result. So look for a niche, look for an opportunity, look for something that sets you apart and focus on that. May not get it right first time, but I think if you go in with that attitude, you will ultimately find success.
That's really good advice. Very good advice, Ben. Tell us, as we move into the new year, where do you think things are heading in the industry in 2026 and beyond?
Okay, so I am an eternal optimist, right? And I was struck when I was at VRWS and Jamie Lang got up and did the first speech and he spoke about the economy. We're in a room of like 750 people. And he was like, who feels positive about the economy right now? And I was one of 3 people to put my hand up. And ultimately, I think it's that. I think the economy is going to get better. And I think if you look at the basic fundamentals of the economy, inflation is easing, interest rates are coming down, real wages are going up. These are the basics of people feeling like they are richer. Even if they are not right now, that effect, I think, over a long enough period of time will allow people to feel richer, have more disposable income, maybe go on that trip where they otherwise wouldn't have done. And I think we'll see that in the short-term rental, because one of the first luxuries that go away from people's lives when they have to restrict income is trips and holidays and everything like that. And I think that is something that we're going to start doing. And that's not just in the UK. I think we'll see that across Europe as well. which obviously people coming particularly to the cities in the UK or places like Cotswolds and Cornwall and places like that will benefit from. So ultimately, I think 2026 will be a year of optimism, high nightly rates, higher occupancy, generally more confidence in the market.
Ben, thank you very much. That's great.